Welcome back. In this tutorial, you'll learn how to add questions and text to your model. Let's take a look. Once you have selected the proper node, you can add text to it by making use of the Actions bar. To add text, click the light bulb. Here, you can type the text that you want to show up on your page. Because this is going to be our first page, you can type anything to introduce or define the NDA here. The option to also add variables will be discussed later on in this playlist. Not only has the line of text popped up in the interface, but also in the actions list. Now that there is text on the page, you can change the title. Let's change Start to Non-Disclosure Agreement. Click the light bulb again to add another line of text, this time saying, click Next to start the questions. This line we want to emphasize. We can do this by adding font styles to the studio. Move over to Layouts and Styles or press F12. In this menu, you can add a style by choosing a name, a font, or you can put the text in bold or italics. For emphasis, we will just make the text in bold and call it Standard Emphasis. You can also change existing styles. After you've made the style, you can select it in the interface drop-down menu. An important note here is that the layouts in the interface is completely customizable. If you want to put your application onto your website, you can easily do so by referring to the names of the interface items and styles in CSS or another programming language. This is why it is important to choose the names of your items carefully. Let's move on to the next step, questions. To add questions to your node, click the speech bubble in the Actions bar after selecting the right node. First, give the question that you're going to ask a name. Normally, this should be something short and descriptive, for you might use the variable name again later in the model. Because the buyer node requires the information from the buyer, there are several things we want to ask. Let's start with the company name. To make it easier to distinguish the questions later on, let's name this question Company Name. Then, we have to select the correct input that is in accordance with the answer that we expect. For some questions, you expect a yes or no answer. For others, a number or a simple word. In our case, we want the name of the company and therefore select text. How to add multiple choice questions will be discussed in a later tutorial. To give the end user of your tool an indication of what the answer needs to be, you can also add a default answer to your question. You can add multiple questions to individual nodes. Now that you know how, add questions that ask for the buyer's other information: legal representative, business address, and location. Pay attention to the exact names given on the screen. Change the node's title to Data Prospective Buyer. After adding the questions for the buyer, you can add the same questions for the vendor by selecting the vendor node. Similarly, you can change the node's title to Data Vendor. For the enterprise node, you would want to ask for the target company's name, location, and trade number. When adding the question for a trade number, you do not necessarily have to select the number input. The text input will suffice for a series of random numbers. Name this node Data Target Company. Now that all the questions that ask for the party's information are in place, we can test the application to see if everything runs correctly. To do this, save the application first. You can do this by going to File and Save, or simply by pressing Ctrl S. Testing your application is done in a separate window of the Berkeley Studio, called the Berkeley Runner. Clicking the Play button in the top left corner or pressing the F9 hotkey launches the runner. In the Berkeley Runner, you can navigate through your personally composed application. Later on, you will learn how to publish your application online. To continue this tutorial, go on to the next video, which teaches you how to further explore nodes by adding subgraphs to your model.